Greetings, my name is Sipesi Mabaso, and today we are going to discuss on what is inclusive education, why is it so important in South Africa, and how can we bridge this gap between policy and classroom practices. So after writing the awareness article, I thought about why don't I just make a video to make sure that everyone get to understand, get to advocate for inclusive education. So inclusive education is not just about placing learners with disabilities in mainstream schools, but it's also about ensuring they are present and their right to have education, participation, and achievement for every learner. So these are the principles that are highlighted by NSCODE 2005. Despite all the policies like White Paper 6, CAPS, Bill of Rights, and any other legislation, many South African learners, they still remain excluded or marginalized due to poverty, language barriers, and other systematic inequalities. So there is an importance of inclusive education. I said we are going to discuss on why inclusive education is so important in South Africa. So if we can implement a correct inclusive education, we can promote equality and justice, ensure that every learner feels valued and respected. That can be done by the collaboration of parents. Parents make sure that the learner feels supported emotionally and even physically, psychologically. Teachers will make sure that they also support the learners in every way they can teach them. Then the policymakers, they should make sure that all the resources, all the support that are needed by the teachers, even the community, they are offered. So the benefits will not be only for the learners, but also in community, parents, everyone that is supposed to advocate for inclusive education. So scholars don't always see, they don't always define inclusive education in one word, because this consistent definitions, there are plenty of them. Then they got me to understand that there are some schools maybe that they think they have implemented inclusive education, but then they lack on which inclusive education is correct. There are two types of inclusive definitions. There's a narrow definition and a broad definition. A broad definition, it's whereby it includes every learner despite where they come from. And then the narrow definition focuses mainly on learners with special learning needs, but making sure that they are also supported or the curriculum is updated to accommodate those learners. So we have numerous definitions that I mentioned, but then I chose only two definitions that we are going to discuss about. We have Marungi 2015 and Midcall 2008. Marungi definitions of inclusive education define it as the extension of the right to education for all learners, not only those with disability, but also with those learners that are marginalized or excluded because of race, gender, or any other socioeconomic background. Then on the other hand, mid-cultural and AIDS define inclusion or inclusive education as the process to integrate or to include learners with special needs into mainstream schools. So he also emphasized that it's not just about placing them, but then to make sure that the curriculum is updated for especially for them. Also, there is systematic supports that are offered, ensuring that teachers are well trained to support learners with special learning needs. So this shows that both of those definitions, they focus on present participation, also with achievement, ensuring that all learners feel welcomed. Both of those definitions, they advocate for inclusion. They also make sure that they emphasize that inclusion is a continuous process, that school must keep identifying and removing the barriers. Okay, then we have ANSCO's principles. ANSCO define inclusion as the process of focusing on presence, participation, and achievement. His principles are tied on presence, making sure that all the learners are present in school, defining inclusion as a process, mentioning that inclusive education is not a destination, but then it's a policy that must be kept revived. Then participation, all the learners are active in class and then they get the good result of achievement. Then we've got practical recommendations. For practical recommendations, teachers must be trained on inclusive education. They must also differentiate the curriculum, making sure that each and every learner is accommodated. We should strengthen the collaboration between parents, communities, teachers, also with the policymakers. Policy follow through White Paper 6 implementation, making sure that the policy is implemented in the right way. They also should support network for teachers, making sure that it's not only the workshops, but then they also do the school visits, not only visiting because they have to check what is wrong, but then they will go there to support teachers in order for us to achieve the success of inclusive education. I've got another practical recommendations that are only catered for teachers, parents, and policymakers. So for teachers, they should build a good relationship with the learners, making sure that every learner is welcome in class, making sure that they communicate with the parents also. As for the parents, parents must make sure that their kids are well catered, make sure that they communicate with the parents, because with the teachers, because parents are the first people that notices if their child have weaknesses somewhere or their strength is where. So in that case, if we can keep the communication between the parents and the teachers, we can achieve a good inclusive education. Other than that, a parent is also part of the community. They can make sure that they join the NGOs. They can make sure maybe they offer free tutorings to make sure that every child is well catered. It's just to offer, making sure that you are also part of the inclusive education. As for the policymakers should prioritize systematic updates. As Mid-Culture and AIDS mentioned that as the child has been placed in schools, but then they have to make sure that the curriculum is updated, the teachers are trained to make sure that they are well trained to teach learners with special needs. We've got two examples. The other example will focus on the narrow definition and the other one will focus on the broader definition. Let's say I've got a learner from the rural areas and the is living with disability. They share a class and the class is overcrowded. Then they don't get proper support. The teacher is less prepared because they haven't got proper training. It's just the workshops. So this challenges reflects on Mid-Cal 2008, emphasizing that, yes, you have included the learner in the schools, mainstream schools, but then what is the support that you are providing? What are you participating in? So in this case, the learner will feel overwhelmed. The learner will feel left out because yes, they're in school, but then they are not getting the attention that they are supposed to be getting. So let's us emphasize that if the learners are included, the support is also offered by the policymakers, by the teachers, by the parents, by the community. Let us be a triangle, making sure that each and every learner is well accommodated in school. And then as for the second example, a learner that is in a full service school in urban areas, then they embrace, in this school, they embrace community partnership, as Maruni suggests, that we can transform learning to peer learning, parent involvement, and flexible teaching to improve every learner's experience. So there's a child that is coming from another country, and then when they come, they feel so lost because of the language. And then it happens that the teacher notices that the learner do not understand any word. Then the teacher will start using the translating apps. And then from there, the teachers start discussing with the principal or the HODs on how they can provide this learner with extra language classes to make sure that the learner feel at home, the learner can also understand the studies, right, the lessons. So in this way, you can conclude that Murungi 2 and 5. In this way, you can conclude that Murungi 2015 definition has been implemented because they made sure that the child is in a proper school. Number 2, the child has been offered lessons to make sure that the child does understand the lessons in schools, because you'll find out that other learners are excluded because of the language barriers. But then in this case, because they have implemented inclusive education, all is kept it well. Okay, before we close, I want to emphasize that inclusive education, it's not a policy to be quoted, but then it's a mindset to live by. It's take a commitment and collaboration to make sure that everything is well. By embracing ANSCO's principles of present, participation, and achievement, and learning from Murungi and Mitchell perspectives, we can make our South African schools to be an inclusive schools that commits as teachers, parents, and policymakers to make this inclusion not just an ideal, but then a lived reality for every child. We know that there are many schools that they have implemented inclusive education, but then it is missing, not just because they don't like it, because there are so many things that they are only left in the policy, but then they are hardly to be implemented because of other issues. Thank you. Bye.